how's it go? Hey, how is it be? How's it going? I wanted to give a second and talk about my review for the series of WandaVision as a whole and what I think about it and would I recommend it to you, as well as a little bit later, my ranking of each episode with spoilers. We'll start now. First, I will, sorry, finding my words here for a second. I will, sorry. I will first, I'm gonna tell you about it, review it, with no spoilers, rank the episodes with no spoilers, and then after that, I'm going to do it with spoilers for people who have seen the series. So first, let's review the series without any spoilers. So for anyone who hasn't seen this and is wondering whether they should, I recommend do it, but here's what you should know first. This is not your regular MCU movie, so if that turns you away, just know that. But also, if you're like, they just stick to the same format, they don't here, and that's good, personally. Next, we have, sorry. Next we have we get so this is basically a show where you get half an hour of each, or around half an hour. It's a little bit longer as we go on, but roughly half an hour shows, amounting to 6 hours. So know that it's going to be a little bit longer than a whole MCU spectacle. But the biggest thing anyone should know while going into WandaVision is it is a slow burn. Do not expect Wanda to be casting these big magical spells against anyone in the first episode, because that's not what's gonna happen. I'm sorry. What you're gonna get is you've heard probably it's a mix of sitcoms, heavy sitcoms first few episodes, and as we go on, it gets more plot developed. As I said, slow burn. There's a little bit of break here and there for full emphasis on plot, but mainly sitcom elements with slow burn into more plot. And as we hit episode 7, we get more plot, but this whole time we're going through the decades of sitcoms, so generally the laugh track in modern sitcoms kind of fades away, so it feels more plotty when they're trying to incorporate some sitcom elements. Personally, it's to me, you still feel, yes, this is a sitcom episode, but as we get to the final act, it's done well, but it's not done with as much hype. Notice this is a TV show where the CGI is very present, and it, in many cases, is way better than any TV show you will see, especially a CW one. The CGI is that of a Marvel movie, but we're not getting, at least in this one, as much because we're focusing more on sitcom elements, especially in the first act or so. There's roughly 3 acts. Beginning with high sitcom influence, middle with medium sitcom influence, and final with more plot and just MCU spectacle. We dive more into that as we go on, but the final episode is very MCU spectacle. It has fan service, but not as much fan service as you expect. It is it's very bingeable, as at the end of each episode, it gets you on the edge of your seat. But note again, whatever, that as this came out, it was released weekly, and I enjoy that because it gives fans time to theorize. It's like regular television, which, this is just a commentary on, this is a parody of, but it's getting this and Prime Video a little bit, and HBO Max a bit, are getting regular streaming like viewers back to the regular order of television in general, of weekly releases that you're kind of missing with these more the bigger television shows. So I enjoy that we're getting that. And if you're thinking of sticking around or joining Disney Plus for any other shows in the future, it's definitely something you should know. But I think the majority of the fans actually did enjoy it. With the one downside to it is that also gave more time for fans to be like, oh, but what if this could mean this? And in some senses, a lot of senses, it didn't end up meaning that. But, you know, like it's not a complete big, it's not an Endgame, which I think coming right off of Endgame, you want thousands of implications. This is an amazing series that does so many things. It parodies sitcoms, but also it gives so much more insight onto the characters of Vision and Wanda. It makes Wanda so much more than a young woman who just lost people and now is depressed, that we barely got any character development for. It's who just started off as like a villain's henchman in Ultron. No, this really develops her character and does so much more for her. You should watch WandaVision if you enjoy sitcoms of any era, you're looking for a good laugh, if you don't mind emotions, you should watch WandaVision. If you would like to see more of their characters and are looking for some more Marvel Cinematic Universe in your life, it's a great addition, but it's not your classic beat 'em up, Next, I'm gonna rank the episodes, but I'm gonna mainly more. Okay, give me like 1 second. I think. Okay. I'm gonna rank the episodes, and then right after I rank them, I'm just gonna say the ranking, and then that's when I'll say stop watching if you haven't spoiled. But here is my ranking. Going from lowest to highest. I think we have number 2 as, I forget, I don't have the ranking directly in front of me. So I think we have number 2 as the lowest. Number 4 next. No. Hold on. Just give me like 1 second. I'm going to edit this and we're just going to come back. Ready? Here's the ranking that I have. First, episode 1. Then episode 3. Episode 4. Episode 2. Episode 6. Episode 7. Episode 5. Episode 8. Episode 9. So my top 5 from lowest to highest are episode 6, episode 7, episode 5, episode 8, and episode 9. I put episode 5 above episode 6 and 7. And let's dive into why. So please stop watching here if you have not watched the entire series of WandaVision, because we're going to delve into my explanation of my rankings starting now. No, actually, yeah. And then as we do that, we're going to talk about the series as a whole. So at the very bottom, we have episode 1. It was actually a very good episode, and it was there as an establishing block and building block for much more. So you had your spoiler warning. At the end of it, it shows Darcy Lewis's hand and the credits, and you see, okay. So you get this episode. It's in black and white. And you are asking so many questions because you don't know what the heck is up. Why is it in black and white? Why is it a sitcom? This is not what I was expecting. And then, you get a little bit of magic use. And then the credits roll and you're like, okay. So there is a real world and people are watching them. So it does create intrigue and it does do the sitcom thing well, but it just isn't the spectacle that everything, it doesn't match the spectacle of everything else that follows it. And it being purely sitcom is just, it just doesn't do a lot for it. It does the sitcom aspects very well, but it just doesn't push it forward a lot. It does a little bit, but that's also not the point of it. The point is to slow burn us into it because it does these episodes very well in the fact that, like, with these episodes, you're getting like you start off with knowing you start off and you go through this whole series knowing as much as Wanda and Vision do, and you figure out this mystery as they do for at least the first 3 episodes. Let's jump into episode 3, my number 8 spot on the list. Episode 3 is the 70s. It's the Brady Bunch theme. There's Agnes, there's Herb, there's Monica, and they have their kids. So, get a lot of pregnancy jokes. So the humor is not as much of a 70s show, and more. So as we're getting more plot here, diving a little bit more into the plot in this episode, the humor is toned down for what feels like is trying to be a very sitcom-y show, a sitcom-y episode of WandaVision. So, because it's trying to introduce these kids in a good way, and it does in a nice way, but it just, at the same time, it feels like it's because we were having it in such the 70s, you feel like it's trying to be a sitcom where there's not a lot of sitcom elements in it. A lot of it does make me laugh, but it's not all balanced here, is my biggest complaint with episode 3. But it does a pregnancy in Wanda's way well. She's coping, she's making this nice plot line that works with her. There's the thing that leads on with Agnes and Herb and Vision and their mystery and Monica going through the wall, which, as many people watched this episode have talked about it, the last 5 minutes are the highlight. The last 5 minutes will not just be the whole episode. The last 5 minutes were good, but they weren't the whole episode. If the last 5 minutes was the whole episode, well, it'd be too short, but it'd be a lot better. Let's then jump into episode 4. Episode 4 was an episode. It was there to catch us up, but I feel like in most movie TV aspects, it would have just been, that episode would have been dispersed through the whole thing, like taking bits of it and put it just in there, because chronologically it takes place both before and during episodes 1, 2, and 3. Episode 4, it just feels weird because of that aspect. It does its episode well, like all of these do, where it gives us exposition that we missed because we were in Wanda's perspective. It transitioned from Wanda to Sword well. I don't know if they could have done it better, but because Wanda threw Monica out, Wanda saw Sword. Sword was being teased through the first act, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 was like a little intermission. And it's just sandwiched between sitcom episodes where it just feels weird. It does feel like WandaVision. It feels good, and the last 5 minutes are also good, and they include Wanda and Vision. But it's not it doesn't sit well with me. It, as an episode, is better than 1 and 3 because it follows its format well, and it has good plot, and it has lots of intrigue, but it's necessary, but it feels unnecessary. Like, when you look at the whole thing, it feels unnecessary at this specific spot. It feels like if you're watching it in a movie, if they edited this whole thing and made it a 6-hour movie, this would be edited in later. But because they're releasing this episodically, this one did not fit as well with the episodic format. Now we go to episode 2, which is really at my number 6 spot, which is really good because we have 4, 3, and 1, the low spots. Why? Because this is does the they did this show, they show does the episode each episode well. But what this does well is we're left with that intrigue from last episode. We saw the avid people, like just not avid, people that notice the details, even if is your first time watching anything from the MCU. If you paid attention to details, you would have seen the sword on the desk at the end of that one. We get good humor with both Wanda and Vision. We get nice plot with Wanda at the party. We get mystery and suspicion around the children. We get Monica, who's a great character in this, and the magic show plot. So this does plot well. This does humor well, and everything else well. And at the end, we not only get advancements in the plot with the beekeeper, we also get it with the color and the pregnancy. The cold open was not necessary, but it was a cold open. What can you expect? It was, and it also created lead up for the helicopter and for the beekeeper, which might have just been the beekeeper and they heard it early. Anyways, what it just did, it just was not as good as the other ones, really. And the black and white thing, it just didn't have as much. It did a lot for where it was in the show, which is why it's up so high. It just didn't have as much plot in it as the later ones did, but it did what it was pretty well. But that's why it's really receiving this number 6 spot out of all 9. Let's move on to the number 5 spot as we are in just reaching, this is like the halfway point roughly of the whole thing. This is the very middleist on the list, and here I have episode 6. This is the 80s episode. Here we get the twins, and the twin aspect is nice. And I think no. That's episode 5. Episode 5. Oh my gosh. Oh no. I put episode 5 so high, and it is very good. Now I'm having some doubts, but episode 6, sorry. I believe episode 6 is the Halloween episode. So, yeah, makes sense. Okay, sorry. Episode 6 is the Halloween episode, and it's nice because you get the fan service and the costumes. But what we miss here is, I saw someone else say this, is right at episode 6, Vision leaves Wanda. You don't get the Wanda and Vision dynamic that we used to, and that's what it was, and that's where it was lacking. Billy and Tommy really served here. It was amazing, and we got some nice things with Agnes. We got nice things with Vision leaving the Hex, but you're getting such great episodes so low on the list because there's such better to come. And I do have valid criticisms of each episode, and this one just didn't have a lot of plot nor a lot of sitcom, but what good moments it did have weren't even like highlights of the episode. But why it gets its spot over 2 when I had more acclaim over 2 is that it does its job at making strides, answering some questions, making us feel more comfortable in the scenario, whereas 2 just doesn't like give us as much hype as other ones do. Next, at spot number 4 on this list, we are over halfway now, is episode 7. This was a good episode, but it just didn't do a lot. We got the best part about this episode was the only thing I can say, the last 5 minutes. You get the last 5 minutes, looking you on to the next episode, which is what WandaVision does extremely well with its 9-episode format and 30 minutes thing. Is it? So we're in early 2000s now, and Wanda, the world's going haywire. Assuming it's just breaking down with her getting weaker as she goes along. Yes. We get some mystery with Agnes here, but we're also lacking Pietro after the last one, which is, he was so big in episode 6 that just, what's he doing now? Like, where is he? It's a valid question. So we think, where is he? And, we don't get that. Visions with Darcy, which is a weak point, and the talking to head things is good. The talking heads things is good. The mockumentary style is good. I like it. It does that well, but that's the only thing that has going for it in the sitcom element. So we're lacking in sitcom, we're lacking in plot, but you can tell we're building up to something more. We're just especially with the last 5 minutes, it does that good plot thing with Agatha, but it doesn't give us all that it could be. Which is just the constant theme of where these episodes are lacking. These are my valid criticisms because I think it's very valid, and I absolutely love it. So I'm such a big fan of the show. But I think when you're ranking these series, you bring up the valid criticisms when you're ranking each episode, putting on each one a bit. Episode 5, I also have tons of criticisms with this one, but it does everything right for what it is, which is why I like it so much. Even as the episode halfway through the series, is because it serves well on being that halfway point. So we start off with this cold open of WandaVision, of Agnes and Vision and Wanda, and they're trying to put the babies to sleep, and there's fear in that, and then it works, but only when they grow up. So not only does the cold open serve more to their motif of fear, but also to advance the plot and have funny moments and develop character. We're already good in the first few minutes. And what's weird about this one is this sitcom, is this theme song was literally, I hated it. Just because it wasn't a bop. It was the fun, WandaVision, Vision Baby was funny, but let's put that aside. We get nice antics with the kids, the dog, Sparky. It's good. The theme we get the morals and the theme in this one, which we don't get in other ones. Which maybe that's just I like in a sitcom, but I like the kids sitcom kind of beat. Excuse me. And Vision has plot at his work, which is something because yes, we get Vision separating from him, but Asif and Vision's scene was really good, and them reading the email out loud, and the scenes at Sword were good too. They were the best scenes at Sword we've gotten in the whole series, I think, because it includes both Hayward and the trio, and after this part they split, and it becomes a little bit weaker because there's no one that they're really fighting much against. Because the trio is good when they're working with or against Hayward, which I like. Next, we also get more Agnes scenes. Where this episode did great at giving us, making us really question Agnes before we were let down in the next episode, which is actually a good thing. I was the red herring we wanted. This episode also didn't. This episode served with Billy and Tommy without even giving them superpowers, because they did great at oh, you can do that, Mom. They're just starting to do it. The Jet and I forget what the other one. I'm so sorry. Just his name is shorter. Great actors already at such young ages. But this episode didn't have many bad aspects of it. There were weird moments, like the first one, But what it did do for the series, what it did as an episode, is extremely good compared to the other ones, where nothing felt out of place. Just as a middle episode, it didn't have as much hype as others carried. Like 6 and 7 would be lower if they didn't carry as much hype, and 2 would be higher if it carried more hype and it was near the end of the series, but it wouldn't because it doesn't fit there, you know? And with the good aspects that 2 has, if it had what it had with sitcom elements and plot elements later on in the series, if more episodes like that had that at the end of the series, those episodes would be, I think you know what I'm saying. And then at the very end, we get the WandaVision fight, which was really, really, really good. When she tried to end the credits, and then Vision fought, and they both flew up and confronted each other. And then Pietro came in and blew us all away. That was it. That was so good. That was my episode 5, in my opinion, is the best episode probably the best episode. The only reason I mark 8 and 9 higher is because we don't have sitcom elements to compare them with. So 8 was very emotional. The acting was great. And despite the flashbacks giving it its weakness, it carried more hype with it. It had more of what I considered real MCU scenes, as well as episode 7. But what dragged episode 7 now was that it was also part sitcom and lacked as much calm as it did. So it had the style of a sitcom of that era, but it had the format. It emulated it kind of well. But with the amount of plot that it was trying to fit in as a third act, episode 7 couldn't fit in as much calm part of the sitcom, no less comedy. So episode 8, we know they're not trying to go for sitcom anymore, so that's why it does it well, but the flashbacks kind of hold it back because you feel like you're just about to get there, and then you get held back. And that's why 9 is good, because 9, I do have very valid criticism of it, it could be more, but I think this is kind of what Vision and Wanda are in their characters, is that they're not Iron Man, they're not going to be shooting lasers out of their chest, they're not going to be blasting lightning with Hulk ripping fighting a big wolf in the waters under a rainbow bridge or anything. You're not going to have Scourge shooting automatic weapons at everyone on a big rainbow bridge as Asgard's burning. You're not going to get that kind of spectacle over here because that's not what the situation is in WandaVision. The situation is we have a witch who's trying to get a lot of power, which is not a good villain motive, not complex enough, and someone who's trying, yes, you should not want to eliminate Wanda Maximoff, but someone who's trying to, Hayward has enough villain motive where you can actually root behind him. I don't, but you can. And Hayward, who's trying to just get his weapon and get Vision out of there, make everything right, which see Sean Chandler if you want to get a defense of Hayward, because I do not have a good one. In my opinion, he's just a total dick. But you see you're able to see where he's coming from more than you are of Agatha, which is not as good. But Agatha does have good fight scenes. She's good as a villain. Catherine is good as a villain. Since we get the character of Agatha so late into the season, we don't have a ton of motive behind her, which makes her character weak. But everything else that they did in this episode was pretty good. The fight scenes, despite being some punching in the skies, we got use of Vision's ability to phase. We got his laser ability, his strength. You do have to have that kind of punching in there because he does have super strength, and that's what he has. And he took down the other Vision very well and adapted him, and it did well for setting up things in the MCU, which is why episode 9 is so high, because we know we're not getting any sitcom, and it does so much. The weakest part of it is definitely the fact that we didn't get as much response of the civilians after the barrier, the lack of a strong motive from Agatha, and I would have liked more elaboration on White Vision. It's not necessary. I would have liked more elaboration on Scarlet Witch's character in the post-credit scene, but it's not necessary because it's a post-credit scene. And but I think I had meant something else. But otherwise, and I would have liked more of a conclusion for Darcy. Maybe they had to cut it down. I don't know. Anyways, those are the only things I could have asked for. But for the most part, that's okay. Like, it did the series well, and it ended on a good enough note, and I'm glad. So, once again, overall, let me give a number ranking to this series so far, and this could change later on as we watch more of stuff in Phase 4. I think this was a pretty nice way to start off Phase 4. It feels like it definitely was not made to be the way Phase 4 was supposed to start. But as a whole, I would... but it was good enough to get fans back into the feel of it with a weekly episode release, and mystery, and good character development, and emotions, and heart to it. In total, I would give this series I'd give it like a 9.15 or a 9.2 out of 10. I already told you it was very good. What it was. You had to have grounded expectations to watch it as well. It was a good setup for more to come, and was good for what it was, which wasn't your average MCU thing. But also, as it evolved more into a full-on MCU thing at the end, you kind of start to interpret it that way. So that's why it kind of receives a 9.2, and it's not as big as anything else on the list and on my MCU. And that's it. Thank you for watching, because I had fun making it. Peace out.